For those who are politically wise, a show about the lives of Christians in Ohio involved with politics. Introducing your host, Reverend Thomas Wise.
Greetings, my fellow patriots, saints, and sinners. The show is titled Politically Wise, and I am your host, Reverend Thomas Wise. At the end of the show, there will be a blessing. Don't miss it. But first, a word from our sponsor.
Next time you're thinking about beating the train, think again. It takes a typical freight train traveling 50 miles an hour, 1.5 miles to stop. That's nearly 18 football fields. Don't try to beat the train. Ohio's roads can be highways or dieways. The choice is yours. A message from Operation Lifesaver and this station.
The opinions and statements on this show belong to those who give them. The rest of the show belongs to Thomas Wise Words, all rights reserved. The show is titled Politically Wise, and I am your host, Reverend Thomas Wise. Hello, my listeners. This is Reverend Thomas Wise. The show is called Politically Wise. We're in the ground floor of the Ohio State House, interviewing Dan Navin with the Ohio Chamber of Commerce. Dan is a lobbyist with them, I believe, or he'll tell you more about it. Dan, tell my listeners about yourself.
Well, I am a lobbyist in kind of a general sense with the Ohio Chamber of Commerce, but because we as an organization organize ourselves primarily in terms of our advocacy work according to particular subject matters. So we've got a person that handles environment, we've got a person that handles healthcare, we've got a person that handles labor and human resource issues, and I would be considered the tax guy at the Ohio Chamber. And that is my primary responsibility, to advocate on behalf of Ohio businesses and our members on tax issues to where we can reduce taxes or to oppose tax increases or other aspects of state and local taxation that affect businesses. But given that we are a relatively small organization, I tend to wear other hats as well. And so I dabble, if you will, Tom, in workforce development. The formal title is Assistant Vice President of Tax and Economic Policy, so I'm involved in economic development, as well as education, both K through 12 and higher ed. So that's a pretty full plate, if you will, for me.
You are located offices here in Columbus?
Here in Columbus at 230 East Town Street, right within 3 blocks of the State House.
How many members strong is the Chamber these days?
The Chamber has about 6,000 members, ranging in size from the largest Fortune 500 type corporations down to a 1 or 2 person type family business, for example, and it ranges from high-tech or biotech in terms of the industry down to the construction trades or small retailers. So we run the gamut in terms of size of companies, and we run the gamut in terms of the industry profile of the companies that we represent.
Okay. So what part of Ohio are you from?
Originally, I'm from the Columbus area. My folks, both my mom and dad, were from Columbus. In 1965, we moved to the Dayton area, specifically Miami Township, and went to Catholic grade school at St. Henry's School, as well as high school at Alder High School in Kettering, and then got a degree in accounting from Wright State University in the Dayton area, and then a law degree from Capital University here in Columbus.
And so what did you do between Capital and chamber?
Did several things. I was in the insurance business for about 8 plus years. I was a claims adjuster for an automobile insurance company for a while, and so those were probably the two main jobs that I had. I worked for the state of Ohio for a couple of years in one of the state agencies, but for the most part, I've been in the public sector, or private sector, excuse me, with for-profit, if you will, businesses. And the opportunity came up in the very early 1990s to become a part of the Ohio Chamber staff, and I jumped at the opportunity.
So you were working in the state agency here?
Not particularly at that time. I was with an insurance company, but I made the transition to business advocacy work and so-called lobbying, which is kind of the generic term that people use to describe what we do at the State House. And I've been at the Chamber since January of 1992, so I'm completing my 22nd year with the Ohio Chamber.
Do they have, how did one become a lobbyist? You have to know, once you get a job, did you have to go for training, or?
No, there is no formal training and or education requirement for being a lobbyist. There are, if you want to call them, niches that people get into. I have a little bit of a niche because, as I said, my primary responsibility is in the tax arena, so it's really pretty difficult to become reasonably proficient in the area and be able to talk and educate legislators on tax issues if you don't have any, if not formal training, certainly some sort of educational background in the tax arena. So, but there are a lot of people who just have kind of your standard run-of-the-mill, if you will, Bachelor of Science or Bachelor of Arts degrees without any particular subject matter specialization that become lobbyists for companies, for lobbying firms, for law firms. It just runs the gamut.
And we will be right back after the break.
To some people, they're just a pet, a dog or a cat. But to you, they're part of your family. They've shared your lives, provided companionship, and given unconditional love. And just like when a human family member passes on, you want your four-legged family members to be treated with dignity. Baker, Hazel, and Snyder Funeral Home and Crematory has been caring for families since 1941 and now offers the same level of service for your pets at Snyder Pet Crematory. Call 274-1151, 274-1151.
The show is titled Politically Wise, and I am your host, Reverend Thomas Wise.
So you've actually been a lobbyist for 27 years.
22 years.
22 years. 22 years.
Yes.
So talk. What's your day like, or what during the week? What is your life like?
That's probably one of the most wonderful things about the work and the job, the work that I do and the job that I have, is that no one day is the same. Let's say, for example, the legislature is in session, the House and Senate are going to be in session voting on bills, but they're also going to be committee hearings on a whole host of bills. So if you want to call it a typical day when the legislature is in session, and assuming I have a bill that I've got to at least keep track of and know what's going on and be able to talk to them about it and articulate the Ohio Chamber's position on it. I may even have to give testimony outlining speaking before a committee and indicating why the Chamber supports, say, House Bill 123 or why we oppose House Bill 123. And so my typical day would be, probably even the day before, writing testimony, communicating with the chairman's office indicating that I'm going to testify, indicating whether I'm a proponent or an opponent, about how long my testimony is going to be. And then I have to make copies of things and prepare, anticipate potential questions that members of the committee might have, because I've got to be able to answer not only about the bill, but why the Ohio Chamber took the position it did based upon what was in the bill. So it involves actual writing, but it also involves a lot of thinking in anticipation of questions that members, legislative members of the committee might have, and then you actually go through, you're actually on the griddle and on the witness stand, if you will, and you respond to the members' questions, and then after the committee hearing is over, you have an opportunity to maybe clarify something that maybe you didn't explain in the depth and clarity that you wanted to, and so you catch members as they leave the committee hearing and try to clarify that.
So, what would be a good day for you?
Well, a good day for me is, I think, because it represents the culmination of a lot of work that I've done, a good day would be a bill that I've been working on, and particularly if it's a bill that we support, is on the House or the Senate floor, up for a vote of the full House or the full Senate, and our side prevails in that vote. So recently we had a bill, for example, it's called House Bill 5. It's a municipal income tax reform bill. It was on the House floor in the early part of November. We got, I think, 57 or 56 members of the House voted in favor of the bill, and now it moves on to the Senate. That is an example of a very good day, where, through our committee process, we came to the position that we supported it. We lobbied on behalf of it. I testified several times on the bill, participated in interested party meetings behind the scenes to correct provisions that might have been unclear, where we met with the opponents of the bill and tried to rectify or take care of their concerns. We were able to get the bill out of the Ways and Means Committee, which is the kind of the tax writing committee of the House, and get it on the floor of the House, where there was a majority vote in favor of it. And like I said, that's kind of the culmination of a lot of work prior to actual passage of the bill in either the House or the Senate.
So how are you evaluated on your work? I mean, do you have you have bills? You're expected to say so many days. You want to have some bills. So how is the lobbyist usually evaluated?
Well, I can't speak for other organizations, but for our organization, I am evaluated based upon how well I serve our members, how effective I have been in advocating the position of our members on a particular bill or a particular initiative. And in my area, which is taxes, certainly every other year there are tax provisions in the budget bill, and probably over the course of a 2-year legislative session there have to be 40, 50 bills, probably a fourth of which we take a formal position on. And I am expected to get both the House and Senate to pass the ones that we support, and to put the stop to, if you want to call it that, ones that our members oppose. And so in large measure, that's how I am evaluated in terms, because we're evaluated in terms of our effectiveness in serving the concerns and the needs of our members. And because I primarily deal with tax, that's how I'm evaluated.
So, tell me about your faith. You got a Catholic background?
I have a Catholic background. I went to Catholic grade school and high school. As I mentioned, went to Wright State and then went to law school. I think over the course of, I came from a very strong two-parent family or household that were very strong, weekly church-attending Catholics who took their faith very seriously. I think it's fair to say that over the course of my early adulthood and working life, I drifted away from the church, and by the grace of God, I eventually, in my late 40s and early 50s, came back to the church. I am a daily Mass attending Catholic. It is an ingrained, it's a habit now, an ingrained part of me. And I do a lot of reading. Well, I shouldn't say a lot. I do a good deal of reading that includes the Bible, some booklets that we as Catholics have, such as, for those who might be familiar, the Magnificat, One Bread, One Body, and I pray a lot, the Rosary, to try to discern what's God's will for my life on a daily and hopefully moment-by-moment basis as well. Sometimes that's very difficult to do, particularly when you're in the cauldron of politics and dealing with people, but I certainly make a best effort to try to do that, because I find I have been blessed by God to reconnect with my faith. It is the animating and motivating factor in my life, and I take my faith exceedingly seriously.
And I can testify that. I've sat in Bible study with you, and I can testify that.
The show is titled Politically Wise, and I am your host, Reverend Thomas Wise. Do you pray for a politician? Do you think a politician can be a Christian? Do you think a politician should stand up for Christian principles? Do you think politicians should pray together? Do you want to see more Christians in politics? If you said yes to any of these questions, please join the Ohio Prayer Caucus Network. Find the Ohio Prayer Caucus Network on Facebook. Welcome back to Politically Wise. If you want to email me, you may do so at politically.wise@gmail.com. Please like us on our Facebook page, Politically Wise.
How does your faith play a role in what you do?
Well, my faith plays a role in what I do, and let's just start with this premise. Trying to discern how God wishes to speak to you and discern what he wants you to do is a lifelong endeavor. I've come to that conclusion. Not a revelation to your listeners, but nonetheless the truth. And because we deal with people, because I deal in the political realm, sometimes you can get to be very frustrated in dealing with people, trying to figure out what they're really trying to do, what their motives are, what is the real intent of what people tell you. And so at times it's very difficult, and I find that when I start thinking too much in that mode of what is this person saying to me, I know that I'm kind of drifting away from the Lord. And I try to catch myself when I start doing that and just say simple prayers, whether it be the Hail Mary, whether it be the Our Father, whether it be the Glory Be, whether it's simply asking our Lord for assistance in this. And I find that it's the simple prayers, the kind of take a deep breath before you get too panicky or too excited or too worked up or too angry, that eventually and usually pretty quickly the Lord speaks to you or provides some sort of opportunity for you to do His will. Do His will. And I don't mean it to sound, very nebulous, but it is very real. It is very real. I don't do it all the time, but when I do pray to the Lord with humility and sincerity, virtually every time, the Lord provides a way for me to do His will, to manifest His grace and His mercy. And it is absolutely the joy of my life to be able to do the Lord's will and work His will through people and through my work.
Have you had an example of this? Maybe you can share, or maybe for confidential reasons you can.
No, there are examples. I can cite you one that strikes my mind right now. I am testifying before a House committee, and I get a particularly difficult question that, one of those where, oh my gosh, what do I say? How do I respond to this? And it's something that came totally out of the blue, so it's not as if I could have prepared for it mentally beforehand, because, like I said, it was just totally out of the blue. And if I didn't have a response for this, it would probably look bad for me. And I just said kind of a quick prayer in my mind before I had to respond. Please help me, Jesus. Please help me, Jesus. And within 2 seconds, I had a ready response, and I was speaking it and articulating it. It reminds me of the biblical verse where Jesus says, if you're being persecuted in my name, don't worry about what you need to say. I will say the words for you, or something,
yes.
pretty close to that.
Close to that.
And even though obviously I wasn't being persecuted in Jesus' name in this, but when you sincerely go to the Lord and, I don't want to say prostrate yourself, but put your hands, place your trust in the Lord, He will find you a way. He will find a way to further you along and to help you out of whatever difficulty you might find yourself in.
So, how do you, again, tell us, how do you keep your head and your heart clear? I mean, the legislators up here often talk about all the influences. Well, you're one of the influences, but so how do you I know you have a personal code, your own personal code of ethics, and your organization has code of ethics. But other than you mentioned it, you're an avid reader. You read the Word, and so how else do you keep your head and your heart clear?
I think the key to everything in my belief is prayer. You have to constantly, at least I try to, constantly pray to the Lord, because He will reveal His plan for your life If you sincerely want to be assisted in that way, and if you wish to be completely convinced that you are on the right path. Now, that's not to say that I don't get off the path periodically. I do. I watch. I have my share of vices and watch things on television, whether it be sports or politics or whatever it might be. Maybe a dumb movie or something that I say to myself after I'm done with that, why did I do that? Why did I do that? Why did I waste my time doing that? I could have been praying. I could have been reading the Bible. I could have been helping some family, my next door neighbors or something. Mm-hmm. And the other thing that I do, and I'm not to say that I do it consistently, but I find that it really helps, is that at the end of a day, I kind of go over the actions of my day and kind of think to myself, well, I missed an opportunity there, or I did something that I'm not proud of there, or I said something to someone that I could have said in another way, or to convey the point I wanted to make another way. And what I find that does is it kind of clears your head a little bit, your mind, and in your heart to a degree too, because part of it is asking God to forgive me for something unfortunate that I might have said, or some motive that I had that I didn't recognize at the time, or just some misunderstanding that I could have reacted to better. And in this line of work, like the lines of work that a lot of your listeners have, you have miscommunications. People misconstrue your motives, and you feel it in your heart, and you know it in your mind too, or at least you believe you know it in your mind. And sometimes there is a visceral reaction that is not of the Lord, but it is of our own human frailties. And that is one of the very practical ways that I try to self-improve and to conclude the day on in a good relationship with God, asking Him for His forgiveness for where I've fallen short during that day.
That's really good. That's really good. You end the day with a clean slate, or so to speak.
One would hope.
At least you learn.
But at least you try. At least you try. And I find it to be more often than not when I do that. Now, that's not to say I do it every day, but because I forget. But when I do it, I wake up much more refreshed and clear-minded, and particularly when I ask the Lord for His forgiveness where I've fallen short. And I think that is a good habit, in my opinion, to develop.
Anything else that I haven't thought to ask you?
Well, I don't want to say that there are unique things about the political realm, but you sometimes can run into very powerful people, strong-willed people that can try to run roughshod over you and just kind of bully their way through you. I have had to deal with a little bit of that. At times I struggle with it, and because I certainly don't want to cower in a corner. If I feel that my position on something is being grossly misrepresented. It's the expectation of my job to counter that in more often than not, a very forceful way. But you also have to maintain a respect. So I guess where I'm coming from with that, Tom, is that probably not unlike many of your listeners, again, who find themselves in situations where they have to balance the forceful response that might be generated by anger or some form of that with respect to the person, regardless of how negatively that person might be coming at you, and the ability to balance the forcefulness of the response with the respect for the person that's speaking to you is something that I constantly have to work on. And because it's very easy, it's really pretty easy to articulate your position on a bill. It's when you get opposition back. It's very easy to talk to people that are philosophically inclined to your point of view, but it's when you get in debates or discussions where emotions can become more heated because you have different points of view on the bill. And the everything points toward ultimately some sort of vote where you're trying to get their support that maybe is not there right now. You want to get them to turn that yes lever when the bill is up on the floor, whether it's in the House or in the Senate, and you don't want them to press the no vote. So you have to balance that strong response in terms of what your position is with respect for, hey, they have a different point of view. At a certain point, you have to conclude maybe I'm not going to be able to persuade them, but I don't want to alienate them personally, because at the end of the day, in my line of work, in the political realm, it's about relationships. It's about relationships and respect. I know that there are going to be a lot of people that disagree with me on a position. Yes, my responsibility is to try to persuade them to that position, but sometimes that doesn't happen on the merits. There are political imperatives, I'll just use that term, that affect where people end up voting. But that doesn't mean you dislike them, you hate them, or anything of the kind, because obviously that's not what Jesus would want.
That's right.
And so you agree to disagree, but you maintain that respect for them as a person and as a legislator who is representing the interests of the members of their district, of the citizens of their district.
Well, sir, thank you again for your time today.
Tom, thank you.
I've been interviewing Dan Navin with the Ohio Chamber of Commerce. The show is called Politically Wise, and I am your host, Reverend Thomas Wise.
Thank you for listening today. If you want to email me, you may do so at politically.wise@gmail.com. Please like us on our Facebook page, Politically Wise. Now, here's your blessing. Blessings today based on Psalms 10, verses 1 through 18. May you be blessed when God keeps you from the traps of the wicked. May you be blessed when the humble receive justice. May you be blessed when God hears your cries.